By the time Princess Lyari rejected her seventh alien prince, the court had turned disappointment into theater. Every suitor arrived with fleets, jewels, and promises. Everyone left with stunned silence because Lyari was not impressed by crowns, or by men who looked at her like a prize wrapped in royal silk. She had spent her life among heirs who admired her face, her bloodline, her throne, but never the blade hidden behind her smile. Then a human walked into her world, and the rules of the galaxy began to crack. Captain Adrian Vale was not announced as a prince. He arrived with a fringe delegation, while nobles shimmered and lied. Adrian stood near the walls studying exits. Lyari noticed him instantly, because he was the only man in the palace who looked at her like she had a choice, and that was the first rule he broke. The Grand Meridian Ball was meant to settle her future. Prince Sarith of Helion had come to claim her hand when he asked for the first dance. The orchestra softened and the court leaned forward. Lyari let him lead. Let the room imagine a union that would bind sectors together. Then the first shot shattered the chandelier. Glass rained over silk and gold, nobles screamed, guards froze, and Sorith dropped her hand to shield himself. Adrian did the opposite. He crossed the chaos, threw himself between Lyari and the second shot, and dragged her behind a toppled table as energy fire scorched the marble behind them. Blood ran down his sleeve, but his voice stayed level. When she demanded to know who dared attack inside her own palace, he answered with the kind of truth no one at court would risk speaking. Maybe someone who knows your guards care more about rank than duty. Lyari should have ordered him arrested for insolence. Instead, she stared at him through dust and broken crystal. Because in one moment the princes had shown her what they would save first, and the human had shown her what he would risk without being asked. The bullet missed her body, but his courage struck something far deeper. After the attack, proposals multiplied, gifts grew grander, and the Senate pressured Lyari to marry quickly before fear weakened the throne. Every banquet became an ambush disguised as diplomacy. But Adrian remained unchanged. He spoke plainly, moved quietly, and treated titles like decorations rather than truth. When Lyari asked why he never flattered her, he said, "Because everyone else here already does. And because you look lonelier after compliments than before them." No prince had ever spoken to her like that. Yet instead of anger, she felt relief. She found reasons to summon him. Security briefings, midnight conversations, arguments about war, mercy, law, and duty. But every clash peeled something away until Lyari began to feel seen, not as an heir, but as a woman exhausted by being used as a bridge between empires. Adrian never tried to possess her. He only stood beside her and told the truth, even when it cut. That was how he got closer than all the princes combined, not through perfection, but through honesty. And honesty is the most dangerous seduction in any court. Then came the night that ended all pretense. Lyari slipped into the lower hangars and found Adrian helping mechanics repair a relief shuttle. Sleeves rolled, grease on his hands, laughing with workers whose names the Senate would never learn. He saw her standing there in silk and moonlight, handed her a tool, and said, "If you are going to judge my repair work, you can at least help." She should have walked away. A princess of Valor did not crouch on cold metal decking beside a human officer. Yet she stayed, and somewhere between exposed wiring and the hum of generators. She laughed for real, not the polished court version, but the laugh of the girl she had buried beneath ceremony years ago. Adrian looked at her then with no strategy, only wonder and restraint. As if giving her all the power, his hand rose, brushed a streak of silver dust from her cheek, and paused. She closed the distance herself. Their first kiss tasted of ozone, rebellion, and the sudden knowledge that this was not a distraction, but the beginning of something that could burn a dynasty to the ground. She had rejected 7 princes without a second thought, and now one forbidden human had unraveled her in a single night. By sunrise, the palace knew, because secrets inside royal walls travel faster than light. The council erupted. Prince Sorith called Adrian a manipulator. Ministers demanded exile, and the lawkeepers prepared charges of corrupting succession. Lyari was ordered to denounce him publicly, to call the whole thing weakness, mistake, madness. Instead, She entered the Hall of Judgment in the battle, white of her ancestors, and stood before nobles from 20 systems with her head high. Soreth spoke first, all polished contempt. Claiming a human could never be worthy of sovereign blood, Adrian answered without kneeling, saying he wanted nothing from Lyari except the right to love her honestly. And that frightened the chamber more than ambition ever could, because empires know how to bargain with greed. But love without calculation is impossible to control when guards move to seize him. Lyari drew the ceremonial blade and stepped between steel and flesh. Her voice rang across the hall. If the crown demands I marry without love, then the crown is unworthy of me. Outside, workers, pilots, medics, and soldiers were already gathering, and in that charged moment, the choice stopped being only hers. This was no longer a romance hidden in shadow. It was a revolution with a heartbeat. They expected Lyari to retreat. They expected Adrian to bow. They expected history to save itself. Instead, she walked down from the throne, took the hand of the one man who had never tried to own her, and chose him before the assembled worlds. Not an alien prince, not an alliance, not a dynasty, but a human who had broken every rule with courage, honesty, and the audacity to love her as an equal. The old court called it disgrace. The frontier worlds called it hope. And when Lyari kissed Adrian beneath the roaring balconies while the people chanted her name, something ancient and cruel finally cracked across the galaxy. Because the greatest threat to an empire is not always war. Sometimes it is a woman refusing to be traded, and a man brave enough to stand beside her when she does.